Hello, we are back after a little bit of a hiatus. I am Anthony. This is Matt. We are the Amoonguss Burnouts. We're going to be going through the Week 5 results real quick. We're going to be touching on the power rankings for Week 5 and right away going into Week 6. That one's going to be a little bit more in depth than the Week 5 results. We're actually going to go into the results, then go into the power rankings and kind of talk about those a little bit more. But for right now, we're just going to go into the Week 5 results and start off with Shield Division.
All right, so for week five, starting off with one of the bigger games, perhaps, at least for us. The Matt Alcinas, which are not us, versus the Amoonguss Burnouts, which is us. Um, this one actually turned out to be, it went much more smoothly than we anticipated. The matchup was tough. Ben and Vici have a very, very scary, very hyper offensive kind of team. Our game plan basically going into it was to lead with follow me trick room and then to use teleport and flip turn the following turn to get Pincurchin and Grimmsnarl in under trick room, which we did fairly successfully. We didn't get as much offense off as we wanted in trick room the first time. We played it a little bit safe, had to protect here and there. The Incineroar came in at some pretty bad times for us, so it was sort of slowing down our momentum there. But we were able to get enough offense down and position ourselves well enough after Trick Room was over to actually set up a second Trick Room. The Slow King the first time actually did not take any damage while it was out on the field, and when it came back out, it still had its focus sash intact. Got hit with a fissure, believe it or not. Went down to 1 HP and set up Trick Room for a second time. And that is when Pincurchin and Grimmsnarl were able to go in a little bit more. Again, same kind of thing happened. We had to play it a little bit safe here and there, kind of trying to avoid the fake out from Incineroar, playing around some protects. But by the time we at one point we predicted a protect on Inteleon, went for a rising voltage on the opposite slot when the Politoed came in, and at that point it was pretty much over. And Pincurchin and Duraludon were able to close it out. The only Pokemon that we lost was Slow King. We lost it on the first turn of the second Trick Room after its Focus Sash had procced. But we played safe enough to preserve all of our other Mons. And we avoided a couple of KOs at the end by going for a substitute on our Pincurchin, so the Urshifu at the end was not able to kill it. And we also had the Choppleberry on our Duraludon, so it survived that Choice Band close combat. So we ended up winning that game pretty handily, 5-0. So that was a really, really big win for us, really big boost to our differential. So really, we're really happy about the way that turned out.
If I could squeeze in right there too,
Yeah,
I think it had a lot to do with we prepped so hard for them. Like a lot of down to the substitute, the Choppleberry, all these things. I think it's a testament, not to us, really not, but like if you prep really well for a team and you come up with a game plan, like even very good teams are gonna have a hard time stopping you because honestly, the Mats Ben and Vichy are both really good players, and we could have easily lost that game, and I
yeah.
think it was the prep that saved us completely. So
Yeah. It was just that was sort of the one mode we identified that they seemed to have the least amount of counterplay
yeah,
to. And I don't think that they were expecting us to go the Trick Room direction either, especially because as it turned out, it the way that it looked to us was that the Magnezone and the Incineroar were not min speed. They do speed tie with Grimmsnarl. All three of those are base 60, but of course our Grimmsnarl was min speed. It seemed to be slower than both of
yeah.
those, so I don't think they were expecting us to do that, especially with the Grimmsnarl. So second match, the SoCal Skarmories versus the New England Patrats. The Patrats came out on top as usual, but I do actually want to give some props to the Skarmories for the way that they played this game as well. They this, I think, was the first time that they really put into action one of the combinations that we wanted to see out of their draft. They went with the physical Sap Sipper Gudra with the Giga Drain Comfey next to it. And they did really, really well with it the first couple turns. They had Iron Tail on Gudra. They maxed it turn 1, got the +1 attack, went for a max Steel Spike, and just KO'd the Clefable outright. As the Runerigus for the Patrats set up Trick Room. After that, the Copperajah ended up coming in, which normally is pretty scary, but the Dynamax actually shifted over to the Runerigus slot. The Clefable was player 1. So so the Copperajah was not able to Dynamax. It took a big Max Flare from the Gudra turn 2 and just went down after attempting to hit the Comfey with an Iron Head. The Comfey had a Babiri Berry. It survived very handily and actually reversed the Trick Room on that same turn. I loved seeing those first 2 turns. It was just absolutely brutal. That combination was just shutting down everything the Patrats had. Then the following turn, the Patrats only had 1 Pokemon left on that side. They brought in the Arcanine, and I was kind of heartbroken that that they didn't end up targeting down the Arcanine, because they did have Stomping Tantrum. I was screaming at my screen for them to max Quake into the Arcanine, and this is my personal opinion. I think if they did that, they probably won the match. But they did not do that. Instead, they went for the max Overgrowth on the Runerigus, which ended up surviving. I think by this time, the Gudra was burned. I think the Runerigus went for a Will-O-Wisp onto it turn 2. But did a lot of damage. But the Arcanine was allowed to stick around, and from that point on, the Patrats were able to kind of just do what they've been doing this whole time. They're able to bulk it out and survive through a bunch more turns. The Dynamax for the Gudra ended. They eventually took it down with some chip damage from a few flamethrowers and a few nightshades. And the Skarmories ended up taking a few more KOs over the next few turns. After the Gudra went down, actually, the Lucario came in and KO'd the Runerigus with a Terrain Pulse, because the Max Overgrowth had set up the grassy terrain. That was super cool. I really like to see that. They definitely got some style points for that. It was pretty sweet. But unfortunately, the Arcanine did actually take a Stomping Tantrum from the Gudra. It was not able to knock it out, but the Arcanine from that point was just able to cycle through Protects. It was healing up first with its berry, and it was getting more and more healing from the grassy terrain. After the Runerigus went down, Rillaboom came in, reset the grassy terrain. It just got more healing from there. It kept cycling Protects, and by the end of the game, the Flareon on the Skarmory side ended up blowing up the Rillaboom, and it just came down to Inteleon and Arcanine on the Patrat side, and a late game Dynamax from Inteleon was able to close out the game. The Skarmories actually had a Scarf Crocodile in the back, which was able to get some good damage off on the Inteleon before it blew it up to close out the game. I wonder if the game had gone a little bit differently. Maybe they KO'd that Arcanine earlier. They might have had enough damage output to get some damage down on the Inteleon before. Yeah, because
Inteleon was going to take KOs.
Right, before the Crocodile came in. Yeah. Maybe it was weak enough to just go down to a high horsepower. It was doing about 50% to that Dynamax Inteleon. But the game ended 2-0. Of course, the Inteleon was still around. The other Pokemon that was still alive at the end of the game was that damn Arcanine. So it's a little bit. It was a little bit heartbreaking to see that they could have gotten their first win if they had played that one turn differently. In any case, they took the Patrats down to just 2 Mons, and I think they really started showing what their team is capable of doing. And I give them a lot of props for that. I liked this showing from the Skarmories better than any other game they played so far. So good on them for that. Then finally we have LA New Wave versus the Potatoes. This one was it had a bit of an awkward beginning, mostly because New Wave they ended up Dynamaxing their Mew, but they did so on turn 2. If they had started with the Mew slot in turn 1, or if they started with the Mew in the Dynamax slot turn 1, they would have been able to avoid a lot of damage because the Potatoes ended up they led with the Galarian Slowbro and Togetic. They went for a Helping Hand, side shell sidearm, side shell arm, whatever. I can't remember what that move is called. They went for a big poison hit on the Mew, and it ended up taking a lot of damage because it was not Dynamax yet. And turn 2, they ended up going for setting up the Trick Room with the Slowbro. And from there, it just kind of went downhill for LA New Wave. It kind of looked like they were doing well because they took KOs on both the Togetic and the Slowbro soon after Trick Room went up, and the Gigalith and the Excadrill came in. You would think Trick Room is still up, Excadrill's in with Sand. Turns out they were Sand Force, not Sand Rush. So they were actually going to do pretty... They ended up doing pretty well with Excadrill in Sand under Trick Room, specifically because so much of LA New Wave's team is very, very fast. On that Mew side, they had of course Mew base 100 speed. They had Tentacruel also base 100 speed. They had Frostlass base 110 speed. The Excadrill undersped all of them and was able to just blow up almost that entire side. They did end up getting out of Trick Room, and Meowstic kind of just sat on the field, clicking Expanding Force after Mew had set up the Psychic Terrain with Max Mindstorm. Wasn't doing a whole lot of damage. Excadrill's a Steel type. It was Dynamaxed. The Gigalith was in Sand. Might have even been Assault Vest. I don't know. It really wasn't taking very much damage from the Expanding Force when you'd normally expect it to on a neutral hit, stab neutral hit.
Even with Sand up.
Right, so... The Meowstic was sort of just sitting there being useless while the Excadrill was able to just beat down the other side with its max moves. And then by the time Trick Room was over, the Tentacruel was the only Pokemon left on that side. The Mew and the Frostlass were gone. And the Meowstic actually went for a Rain Dance. Tentacruel outsped the Excadrill and hit it with a Rain-boosted Scald, but the Max Quake boost ended up allowing it to survive. So... Yeah. Excadrill and Gigalith continued to go in. New Wave got some decent damage off with the Hitmonlee and the Scarf Dracozolt in the back, but it really was not enough. The Darmanitan and the Urshifu for the Potatoes were able to close it out. So bit of a strange game. You don't really expect to see Excadrill in Sand in Trick Room going for the sweep, but of course, they were Sand Force instead of Sand Rush, and it really paid off. So good on them. And then, of course, we have Lava Ridge Raiders on a bye this week. So that is week 5 for Shield Division.
Going into Sword Division, it's a little bit tricky here. We actually have film for none of these games, and the second one doesn't click in the Mimikyus. Actually, was a forfeit. So it's going to be a lot quicker than the Shield Division was, because we had basically games for all those, except for...
No, we saw all of those.
Yeah, we saw all of them.
Yeah, we had all the information we could hope for on those.
Yeah. But for Team Pussy versus Sadistic Seniors, we saw that Team Pussy, they started off with from what we've heard, was with the War Turtle Hattering lead, and went for an immediate Trick Room, tried to get that set up, and tried to sweep, but... the seniors actually ended up bringing Kanto Marowak and went for an Earthquake turn 1. Helping Hand Thick Club boosted Earthquake turn 1. Did a nice amount of damage to the Hattering that kind of stopped it from sweeping, because they were basically able to stop all their offense in the Trick Room coming out. they were able to survive. They had the Porygon Z that came into the late game, and then they Dynamaxed that with a little bit turn of trick, with a couple of turns of Trick Room left. I think actually only one turn of Trick Room left, and we're able to just sweep through with that. So, you know, not to get on Team Pussy too much here because the seniors are actually a really good team. They've showed that they are capable this year. But this is kind of one of the things that we've hit on a little bit, where Team Pussy, as usual, they prep well enough to where they're able to get their initial strategy off, whether it be trying to get max airstreams with the Gyarados or going into Trick Room mode with Hatterene, or even say Tailwind. They most of the time are able to get any of that stuff off, but they just lack the firepower to punch holes through teams with the mons that they have. And I think the seniors really showed like that even with we only using something like Marowak that doesn't really underspeed anything that they have in Trick Room. He was still able to put out good damage with that Earthquake. So that way, I believe the Hatterene expanded forces the next turn on turn 2, and the Life Orb damage just killed it. So it's when you're doing 98%, ish to 90 to 95 or 95 to 100% on those things. I mean, it's gonna be tough to kind of pull away on that. So props to the seniors. They've really showed that they can prep. They've really showed. I think this is the first time they've maxed the Porygon Z? I think it might be the second.
Maybe.
Yeah.
They might have one once before. I can't remember.
But either way, they're showing that they really don't need to run that. I mean, the MVP of this team is clearly the NDD. The NDD enables them to do everything that they want to do. I think they've led it every match, which is, I mean, that's what you do. NDD's a fantastic lead. It sets up terrain. It immediately forces your opponent to focus down on something else that you may have next to it, that you may want that to happen. So, honestly, the seniors have been doing great. Unfortunate for Team Pussy here, that they took the loss again, but
yeah. Well, we have said before, just going back to the Indeedee, it is clearly the best redirector in the format. I mean, it's a follow me Pokemon that just can't get faked out. That's amazing.
Yeah,
especially when you're kind of relying on. I don't know that the seniors have been doing this a lot, but if you're relying on specifically on getting a Dynamax and a Follow Me off like on the first turn, especially in a format where the Dynamax is swapping between spots and you can't just double protect, do the same thing turn 2. That's pretty valuable.
That's something that really hurts us. I don't want to say hurts us, but we have to constantly take it in consideration where it's like if they lead Fake Out against us here, and we are forced to double protect instead of redirecting something away, is it going to slow down our momentum to be able to get the Dynamax back into that slot that we originally planned it in?
Yeah.
So
there are totally ways around it. It's not that big of a deal. It's just like when you have Indeedee, it's just an easy mode to be able to get through that problem.
Yeah. So props to the seniors. They moved to I believe 3-2 after this, and then the Team Pussy went to 0-4. And then Doesn't Click ended up beating the Mimikyus, but it was just on a forfeit. The Mimikyus actually didn't end up showing up, so Doesn't Click gets that 3-0 win. They moved to 3-1 after this.
Yes.
And then after that, we have the Sky Pillars versus the Russian Assets. We're filming this on Thursday, so it's been about 2 weeks already since that one. So we watched it. We were here watching Dina play it. But it essentially started off with a Cinderace Butterfree lead versus a Golurk and Riolu lead. The Riolu went for coaching into the Golurk, and the Golurk went for a max ground, not fearing any type of Rage Powder, right into the Cinderace. And Cinderace had previously max Steel Spike into the Golurk, I believe, and we found out that when the Butterfree went for the Sleep Powder on the Golurk, me and Matt looked at each other and were like, "Oh, they're safety goggles," and we heard Dina and Taryn, freak out a little bit about that. So big props to them. The safety goggles was a great reveal. It really shut down, probably their most powerful lead, something that's probably been one of the more consistent leads.
Yeah. So that was kind of the beginning of the end.
Yeah. I believe they go for a Trick Room as well. They set up Trick Room.
They may have later on.
Yeah.
But I think they did.
Yeah. It was honestly a really, really good match Hello, everyone. Sorry about that. The recording cut out in the middle of that. So
Little bit of technical difficulties there, but we're back. It's
yeah,
okay.
so we're just gonna kind of touch back on the Sky Pillars and the Russians. Um, I think we're talking about them getting Trick Room up. Honestly, uh, wasn't they weren't putting down a lot of pressure just in the first place. The Russians really couldn't after getting the Cinderace, trying to get the Cinderace set up. They ended up just taking care of everything with Golurk. Um, Honestly, just a great prep by the Sky Pillars. They're like a really when you have a matchup like that and you're able to adapt and kind of throw an item on there that's going to shift the tide of the game, like it's just hats off to them for being able to do that.
Yeah, the once the Russians had Trick Room up, the Kaparaja was able to score one or two KOs, brought it down to a 3-0 in favor of the Sky Pillars, but yeah, it just wasn't quite able to do enough once it was kind of all on its own out there. So ended up going to the Sky Pillars.
Okay, so that wraps up week 5, the real quick, and the Raiders and the Talonflames were on a bye this week. So with that being said, we're gonna go into the transactions that were done this week,
All
or
right,
week 5 at
so
least.
yes, so these transactions were done in between weeks 4 and 5. They are these new Pokemon are available for use starting in week 6. So since they're now available after the games that we just went through, we are including these trades in our decision making for week 5 power ranking. So we're going to go through these before we get to that. First off, we have the Melee Mimikyu is trading in the Duosion for the Kanto Weezing. After that, the Skarmories came in, dropped the Execute for the Fletchling. Team Pussy dropping the Wartortle, interestingly enough, for the Crawdaunt, keeping the water typing in that slot, but losing Follow Me. The Toronto Talonflames then came in and made the only double trade for this transaction period. They dropped the Colossal for the Alolan Marowak and got rid of the Malamar in favor of Starmie. And then our last trade by the Russian assets is going to be Grookey for the Drizzile. We kind of had a debate about how to pronounce this thing's name. Please
Drizzle,
send help
Big
if you
Drizz.
know. I'm gonna say Drizzle. You think it's Drizzile?
I think it's
It
Drizzile
could be either one. I don't know.
for Drizzle.
I think probably nobody knows, to be honest. But anyway, they got that thing instead of Grookey. So any thoughts in particular on these trades?
Um, Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to see the clear team that kind of came out and made really good trades. So we'll talk about that one after. But the one that I really want to hit on first, the one that I really didn't like, was the War Turtle for the Crawdaunt that Team Pussy made. Um, you know, the C tiers that they had available to trade to get Crawdaunt in. I honestly thought that War Turtle was better than even Purloin, even though Purloin is, we had it last year. We got some pretty decent stuff out of it. Obviously having the prankster ability is real good, but with War Turtle having Follow Me, with having Fake Out, being able to put EV Light on it, make it decently bulky, whereas like Pikachu, not really able to do all that much. It does have a better speed stat, also gets Fake Out as well, but kind of when you get Follow Me, you can't get Lightning Rod either. It's a lot more frail than the War Turtle. The typing's not as good either. Water's a really good defensive typing. So I don't know. I thought that if you were gonna get rid of anything, I don't know if I would have got rid of the War Turtle. That seemed to be one of the better Pokemon that they had on their team. One of the parts that I actually really liked, and I might have even got rid of the Mienshao as well. I just think Follow Me is so good in this multi battle format.
Yeah, especially when you consider what they got for the War Turtle.
Yeah.
This also, interestingly enough, opens up War Turtle for other teams to take. So it might be interesting to see who decides to go for that. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the Crawdaunt is doing for their team. It does add a dark type, which maybe can help out Hatterene against some ghost types potentially. But they are adding another a water type physical attacker to go along with the Gyarados. Obviously, they're a little bit different in exactly the role that they fill. The Crawdaunt is hits a little bit harder straight out of the gate because it has the adaptability ability. It does have Aqua Jet, which Gyarados doesn't. It has both Dragon Dance and Swords Dance. It can operate a little bit better in Trick Room. It's base 55, I believe. Not going to be too good against like a lot of the base 30s or even stuff going up to like Marowak speed base 45. So there's a lot of Trick Room ones that are going to be outspeeding it, or underspeeding it rather. It can do some good stuff. It offers some minor things that their draft does not already have, but overall, I am a little bit skeptical of this one as well. I don't think it's not a trade I would have made personally.
Yeah, but who knows? They're good players, so
Yeah, I'm sure they have something in
don't
mind.
work. I wonder about trading it for War Turtle.
Yes, I agree. After that, I think we can blow through some of the trades that don't matter quite as much. Starting down at the bottom, we got the Mimikyus picking up Kanto Weezing. I think in general, Kanto Weezing is a better Pokemon than Duosion. Yeah. It's although I don't think it's really what they needed to be doing in terms of their trades. We've been saying the same kind of thing a few times already. We think that they either need to get rid of the Durant mode or the Cobalion mode. It's too much of the same thing. The Weezing, I feel like it's good for countering certain things that your opponents might be going for, but they really need to be patching up the weaknesses on their own team instead of shoring up the ways in which they can shut down what their opponents are going for, which is which they're able to do with neutralizing gas now. Neutralizing gas being kind of the main reason you pick up the Weezing down there in C tier. Anything to say about Weezing?
Not really. I mean, I not so much to say about Weezing. You're also kind of getting rid of the main thing that your Steel types do. Like, you have Justified. You can't really get any Justified boosts off if you have Durant out. Are you really wanting to get rid of that Hustle ability? Frangard, like Clefairy has an amazing Frangard. Like, so I don't know. It seems weird that it almost seems like they took it just so that way no one else can get it.
Maybe, yeah. You also do have to consider what else is on the field, like what other ability you're shutting down. Like if you're shutting down your own Friend Guard, that means you have Weezing and Clefairy on the field, yeah. Which means you're probably not doing much anyway. You have very little offensive presence if that's what you're doing. And the Cobalion, you're probably getting those Justified boosts before Weezing comes out.
I'll tell you this about the Mimikyus. This was the week that I believe they could pick up Dynamax or Gigantamax Colossal. I thought for sure that what they have with the Sneasel, that they would have attempted to go for that, and maybe tried to swap out the Cobalion or something for the Dynamax Colossal, because I believe the New Wave had dropped it 2 weeks prior.
Yeah,
so it would have become available right now. But yeah, I don't know. I think the Weezing could be okay. We'll see how they end up doing with it. Obviously these transactions, these players have things that they want to do, and they have stuff that they want to have in mind, maybe for their next opponent. So maybe they're looking ahead to their next opponent and going, this Weezing is going to be really good. So
yeah, it's generally speaking, I think once again we said this during the last transaction cycle, not the trades the Mimikyus need to be making. So. Going up to the Russian assets, we have Grookey for Drizzile. Doesn't really change much. I think they have a Pokemon that they can use Surf with next to Gastrodon. They have maybe, I know Inteleon gets Soak. They might be able to, if this thing does as well, they can pull off some Soak shenanigans. Maybe Scarf Soak next to Jolteon or something like that. I can see him doing some fun stuff with it, like maybe once. but doesn't really change their team much.
No.
They're not bringing Grookey anyway.
Skarmory's actually like the execute for the fletchling. The
Yes.
execute was just very dead weight.
Yeah, wasn't doing anything.
no.
The only real reason that Execute has for being in D tier instead of E is that it's a chlorophyll sleep powder user, but they don't have any Sunny Day on their team. They don't even or like Drought. I mean, they don't even have a Prankster Sunny Day. So yeah, Execute for them really not doing anything. At least Fletchling has something useful it can do. It's got priority Tailwind. It's got a few other tech moves. They do have Tailwind on their team already with Unpheasant and Comfey. But this at least gives them a priority Tailwind and something that will probably be getting off the field relatively quickly. So maybe they can get another offensive threat in right away to take advantage of the Tailwind along with whatever was next to the Fletchling. I don't really see them bringing it very much. It doesn't change a lot, but it's obviously a positive change.
So to just go into that, we're going to transition into the Talonflames. They honestly had the best trades of the transaction period. The Colossal and for the Alolan Marowak, I think it adds a legitimate fire type to their Fire Water Grass core.
Yeah.
Something that they can bring to most games that's not going to rely on setup or anything like that. Gives a good dimension to their Trick Room mode. Lightning Rod, Rockhead, awesome abilities that they can have.
They're so much less reliant on that setup now, too.
It's honestly, it's just a good addition, I think. It's a really, really good addition.
Yeah.
The Malamar for Starmie. Starmie's okay. I mean, I'm not as excited as I am about the Marowak. I think that they can do decent stuff with it. It's got a good speed tier. Has some decent support stuff. Gets skill swap, things like that. We were looking through the moveset yesterday. Nothing outrageous. I think it has adaptability, but you really don't want to go last with... Not adaptability. Analytic. I always get those two mixed up every time. But they're both on Porygon 2 and Z. But, analytic. You don't really want to be going last to get the analytic boost anyway with Starmie because it's pretty frail.
Yeah.
And then it also obviously has a pretty nice speed stat. But I'm sure they're going to be able to do something. But the Marowak is really...
Yeah.
I think it's probably... besides the Tangela, which I think added a new dimension to their team, I think the Marowak is... They're really, really... The Talonflames are kind of showing... how to evaluate your team mid-season, understand what is still out there in the pool, and constantly evaluating and removing pieces that may not be as beneficial later on during the season that might have been okay earlier. Going, you know what, this is going to be better for us in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I think they are very clearly using these transaction periods better than anybody.
Yes, they're really... They're doing a great job. So not really much more to say about that. I think
I do want to stick up for the Starmie. Actually, I really I really like Starmie as a Pokemon.
Okay.
It gets. I think we probably as VGC players, a lot of us will probably have a tendency to underestimate it, because or think of it as somehow underwhelming. Because it doesn't really show up in a lot of in VGC very much. I saw like a little bit of it in 2017, but not much. But mostly because it just gets outclassed by so many other good Pokemon, really regardless of what the format is. But in a draft league setting, I think it really has a chance to shine a lot more. It's got a great speed stat. Base 115 is fantastic. Not the best, could be better, but it's very fast. Base 100 special attack, probably one of the reasons it gets a lot of other Pokemon outshine it in VGC. It's still usable, but again, not the best. It doesn't really have any abilities that are like going to consistently boost its damage. You probably run analytic on it a lot of the time. Unless you're particularly scared of some status or something, then you run Natural Cure. Just because, but even though it's probably going to be moving first, Analytic is there in case there's something a little bit faster. Maybe it gets caught in Trick Room unexpectedly. I think it's better than the alternative sometimes. but it's got a lot of really interesting coverage. Obviously, psychic and water coverage. It unfortunately does not have Shadow Ball, which I just learned recently. You usually expect psychic types to have either a Dark Pulse or a Shadow Ball. This thing doesn't get either of them. But it does have Ice Beam like most other water types do. It's got access to Thunderbolt. You don't get electric coverage from a lot of water types. It has it has Dazzling Gleam. It has Power Gem, which is a really interesting move. It even has it gets Meteor Beam, which probably is not going to be used very much, but on the off chance maybe you want to Dynamax it, you get a more powerful Max Rockfall than you would with Power Gem. And it can even work as a fast support Pokemon. It gets Thunder Wave, gets Icy Wind, it gets Screens, it has Skill Swap. Not as useful in a Dynamax format, since Skill Swap doesn't work on Dynamax Pokemon, but you can still do something with it, I'm sure. It even gets Flip Turn now with the Isle of Armor move tutors, so it has a way to switch out mid-turn now. I think it has a lot of value. I really I'm curious to see them use it. I really want to see what they do with it. I like it as a Pokemon. I think it's sort of a hidden gem. No pun intended. It's I like it a lot. I like the trade.
All right. Well, you know what? You sold me. Honestly, I think in general they've showed that they really could make the trades that they need to make. So, uh, I think the Marowak, I think the Starmie really is gonna add a lot to them. They're making the trades that they need to, and they're showing they're very accomplished
Yeah.
players. So
Something else that I find interesting about their Firewater Grass Core now is I'm not. This is just kind of off the top of my head, so I'm not really sure if this is a positive or a negative. It's probably some of both. I think with the more solid Firewater Grass cores that we're seeing from like the Sky Pillars or the Patrats or Doesn't Click, a lot of their fire, water, and grass types are a lot more balanced between speed, bulk, and offense. This one is a little bit different. Each of these Pokemon, if we exclude Marill, of course, because Starmie is their real water type. You're not really going to be using Marill much. But if we take a look at their Marowak, Starmie, and Tangela, each of them fills a very different but kind of specific role. Marowak is a slow, just brute force attacker with that thick club. It's usually you build it bulky rather than fast. It likes to be under Trick Room a lot, and it's just doing a massive amount of damage. Starmie, mostly going to be a fast offensive Pokemon. Could be fast support sometimes, but its speed is one of its main strengths, very different from Marowak. It doesn't have the strength that Marowak has. I don't even think it has a way to boost its special attack. I checked for Calm Mind. It doesn't get Calm Mind. It doesn't get Nasty Plot. But its main strength comes from its speed and its coverage, I think. And then you have Tangela, which is not offensive at all. It's just very bulky support redirection kind of Pokemon.
what you need it for?
Yeah, so it's very interesting how each of those members of that core fills a very different role. I'm gonna be interested to see how they work with that.
Yeah, honestly, their team is shaping out to be one of the better teams in the league. And also, they joined us as as the only team to have a Firewater Grass core and a Fairy Steel Dragon core. I don't think any other team has that, but us and them. Although we kind of cheated a little bit, our Steel type and Dragon type. Oh, but we have
Noivern.
Boom, Noivern. Do we bring it? Yes, all the time, and you should expect it.
It did good so far when we brought it, and it hasn't died. So that's
Yep,
yeah.
exactly.
Maybe we should trade for another steel type. I don't know. We'll talk about that later.
We'll pick up Cobalion. All right, so let's move on from week 5 and move straight into the power rankings. I'm just gonna go over these really quick. It's just gonna be really abbreviated.
We're gonna spend a little bit more time on the week 6 power rankings.
Those are the ones that we're actually gonna talk over. So we just kind of want to put this in because we do want data for the end of the year to kind of track how all the teams did during the power rankings and which ones climbed up or which ones dipped down a little bit. But with 11 through 14 in general, they're all winless teams. None of them won a game this week. Team Pussy, the Skarmories, the Raiders, and the Mimikyus. None of them won a game in week 5. So we kept them all at the same spot that we had them at before. With the New Wave and with the Potatoes, the Potatoes beat the New Wave, so we just ended up switching those spots really quickly. The Potatoes are sitting at 2-2, I believe, or 2-3.
2-2.
Yeah, 2-2. And the New Wave are now at 1-3 at this point. We dropped the Mats down a couple spots from the 6th spot, mainly because of the loss that they took to us, a -5 differential on a game like that. You're going to really want, in our division, the differential might come down to it because a lot of the teams are kind of scrunched up, barely fighting to get above 500, but there's, the differential might come down to it. So we did move them down 2 spots. The Talonflames had a bye, so we just kept them where they were. The Seniors moved up a couple slots, but I believe who they play? They play Team Pussy. So, it's just one of those things where they took care of business against a team that hasn't been performing so well. So we did move them up a couple spots there.
Normally, I think we probably would have moved them up just one spot for that, since they beat a team that hasn't picked up a win yet. But we preferred to keep the Talonflames where they are since they had a bye, as usual. It's not a hard and fast rule to keep a team where they are when they have a bye, but usually we like to, and we prefer doing that instead of only moving the Seniors up one this time.
And the situation kind of allowed for it this time.
Yeah.
We kept the Russians at 5, despite the loss. They lost to the Sky Pillars, an undefeated team. This is kind of one of those games where there are 2 very good teams. We can't really knock either because one of them has to lose. So I think if the Russians were to have won, we really wouldn't have hit the Sky Pillars too hard. I think they probably would have stayed in the top 5 as well.
Yeah.
So just one of those things where we're not going to hit the Russians too hard for losing to the Sky Pillars. Doesn't Click, we moved down despite them getting the forfeit win. Doesn't really have much to do with Doesn't Click. It has more to do with the Sky Pillars. We
just a really dominant game from them week 5.
Yeah, against the top team in the Russians, a team that did beat Doesn't Click. And then we also kind of like the fact, not that this was a hard or fast rule anyway, but the fact that the top 3 now are all undefeated teams at the moment. So kind of justified it a little bit more too to move the Sky Pillars up to number 3.
Yep.
The Patriots, while they did win their match against the Skarmories, we're keeping ourselves ahead at number 1 mainly because of the differential that we've been able to maintain.
And they were kind of close to losing this week potentially.
Yeah.
I think they were. Like I said, I think they were one different play from the Skarmories away from losing that match.
Yeah. So because of that, they really didn't give us any argument to kind of move them up ahead of us. And then obviously with the win that we had against the Mats, we just kind of locked ourselves into the 1 slot there. So for the most part, the week 5 power rankings just kind of worked their way out. A couple switches here and there, but just more or less straightforward. So with that, we're going to jump into week 6, where we are going to be a lot more in-depth. This is going to be a little bit more like our regular videos.
At least with the power rankings.
Yes, we're going to skip Geniuses and Idiots completely this week, just because it kind of takes up a lot of time. But we'll come back.
We may come back with that in the future, depending on what we've got.
We have a couple other things that we want to do as well.
Yeah.
But we do want to keep this at a reasonable time limit too. So with week 6, you want to go ahead and start off with Shield Division?
Yes, I do. The first game from Shield Division, the Mad Alcinas versus the New England Patriots. We had a bit of an upset win this week. Not that we're expecting the Mats to lose a lot, but the Patriots were prior to week 6 were one of the only undefeated teams in the league, and they took a loss to Ben and Vichy this week, this past week. So this game was played pretty methodically by Ben and Vichy in the beginning. The Patriots did something that I think that they try to do a lot that has worked for them so far. Not that they do this every time, but it seems to be a common practice of theirs to Dynamax early, get an early lead, and then use their team's bulk and synergy to really maintain that lead and to not lose a lot more Pokemon, which uh, ends up forcing a lot of their games to go to time, which all of those have been in their favor so far, except for this one. Um, they went ahead and Dynamaxed their Inteleon really early in the game, and Ben and Vichy were able to use some smart switching to stall out that Inteleon Dynamax, and the Inteleon's Dynamax ended, and it hadn't even taken a single KO by that point. So
Yeah.
they did a really good job of stalling that out without even using their own Dynamax yet. The Urshifu ends up Dynamaxing or Gigantamaxing later on in the match. But they continued to play sort of a slow, methodical game. Even after the Dynamax, they got a couple of important spores off with the Fungus. There was one point actually where they ended up sporing into the Rillaboom, correctly predicting a switch into the Clefable, so it was unable to continue redirecting hits. And by the time they got the Urshifu and the Gengar out, they were putting on enough offensive pressure while some of the Patrat's Pokemon were asleep. The Gengar was actually Choice Scarf, and it locked into Sludge Bomb. There's not a lot on the Patrat's team that's resisting poison. And on one side they had Rillaboom and Clefable, which are obviously both weak to poison, and they also had Manectric, which not weak to poison, but it's very frail. They were getting a lot of damage down on the Manectric with just spamming Sludge Bombs into that slot, while the Urshifu was putting out a lot of offense itself. They and they were able to blow through enough of the Patrat's team to end up winning on time. I believe it was something like a 4-2 finish, something like that.
I think it ended up being 3-1.
3-1. Okay.
Yeah.
Something like that. It was not a big differential. But yeah, the Mats ended up coming out on top. Pretty significant upset win, considering that the Patrats were one of our only undefeated teams. So really interesting to see the match play out that way. Next we have the SoCal Skarmories versus LA New Wave. This is going to be the first win for the SoCal Skarmories. Like I was talking about earlier, I think the Skarmories are finally starting to hit their stride. They did really well against the Patrats in week 5, and here they're picking up their first win in week 6. They correctly identified that the Crocodile was going to be very, very powerful in this match. If you look at LA New Wave's team, look at all the Pokemon that they might want to Dynamax. They've got Mew. They've got the G-Max Duraludon. They've got the Dracozolt, which the Dracozolt ended up being their max this game, all weak to Crocodile. The Mew actually does outspeed the Crocodile, but still, it's weak to Dark. So what the actually in the beginning of the game, the Skarmories led with their Crocodile, of course, but they also led with their new Fletchling, and I don't know how much this really mattered, but the Quick Claw popped 3 turns in a row, which was kind of funny to see. But they did get Tailwind up. The LA New Wave again went with the Meowstic and Mew lead. Meowstic again wasn't really doing a whole lot in this match. The Crocodile lead forced the Mew to switch out turn 1, and it gave a lot of momentum to the Skarmories. They were able to set up Tailwind pretty quick. The Dracozolt came in, Dynamaxed, went for a max Airstream onto the Fletchling, which allowed the Skarmories to get a free switch into their Unpheasant, and for the first time this season, they got the Night/critical hit strategy off with their Anger Point Crocodile. Ended up going to +6 while they were still Dynamaxed, and in Tailwind, and Crocodile was just able to sweep through so much of this team. It just destroyed the Dynamax Dracozolts. It blew through everything they had on the other side, killed the Meowstic. Actually went for a brick break onto Tauros in the early game, picking up the KO and breaking the Meowstic's Reflect. And Meowstic set up another Reflect later on, but it really didn't matter once they got the +6 on the Crocodile. The Crocodile was just able to blow through the rest of their team. It was faster than the Hitmonlee when it came in, and it also together combined with the Goodra just took out the Tangrowth at the end of the game. So really really big sweep from the Skarmories there. It was really cool to see them getting another one of their combinations off that they clearly drafted for. I think they're hitting their stride now. They picked up their first win, which hopefully should give them some confidence moving forward. I'm excited to see what they're going to be doing in the coming weeks, especially since they have some they have a couple of tough matchups, but we'll get to that later. And the last game for Week 6 in Shield Division, we have the Potatoes versus the Lava Ridge Raiders. There's not a whole lot to say about this match. I think this is sort of business as usual when it comes to the Raiders match. The Potatoes took the match off of the Raiders as everybody else has so far. The Raiders did manage to take it down to an 0-1 finish. So not a big differential boost for the Potatoes. They just got a +1. But they did actually have to get a double protect in order to do that. Otherwise, the differential would have been quite a bit worse for them. But the match was pretty straightforward. The Potatoes took out their ability to set up Trick Room, and from there, it just their team just can't really do much outside of Trick Room. They were able to get through their Sun mode well enough, and they ended up the Dragalge toward the late game was pretty threatening. It was very bulky after it Dynamaxed, and it had a weakness policy on it, which was pretty scary. Adaptability, max moves, nothing to sneeze at. But the Potatoes did a good job of stalling out the Dynamax and using the tools that they had left to pick off the last few mons, the Mudsday on the Dragalge there in the end game. So kind of the same thing we've seen before. Trick Room is stopped, and the Raiders team just doesn't really seem to be able to do much. So they took another loss here this week. And then the bye for we got a bye this week, Amoonguss Burnouts. So we do indeed remain undefeated. Didn't really have to put much effort into that this week, but
got the win anyway.
Yeah, if that's how you want to look at it, sure. So that's gonna do it for Shield Division. On to Sword Division.
Yeah, real quick about the Shield Division. All these teams, I think, even the Raiders, but it's gonna be a long shot for the Raiders. They still have a playoff shot. The Skarmories, they're 2-4.
1-4.
No, they have 2 wins, don't they?
Skarmories, no, they're 1-4. This is their first win this week.
Yeah. So, but they still have a chance to come out. They still have a chance to get some wins because they're only a couple games back from from the playoff spots. I mean,
they probably do have to win out.
Yeah.
Same with New Wave.
Yeah. The Potatoes are 3-3 right now. Is that correct?
Yes.
So obviously they're in a good spot too. They're right up there with the Mats, but neither the Mats or the Potatoes have shown much consistency, and that's no disrespect to them. It's just we're seeing a very up and down from both the Mats and the Potatoes. However, I will say the where the Potatoes have consistently taken care of business is against some of these lower teams. No offense to them, but they have beat the New Wave, they beat the Skarmories, they beat the Raiders. Those are teams that we had them at number 3 on our power rankings in week 0. We expected them to come out and have a good team. So they should have taken care of those games. I didn't expect them to just blow through the New Wave like they did last week, but they did. So, kudos to them. But I think the Skarmories and the New Wave still have a chance at making the playoffs because of the inconsistencies that both the Patch Rats and the Potatoes have shown.
The
Obviously,
mats and the potatoes.
I'm sorry, the Mats. I was gonna say obviously the Patch Rats and us are probably gonna be locked into the 1 and 2 seed coming up pretty soon because of how bad everybody else has been doing.
Yeah, once the first one of us, either us or the Patras, the first one to get to 6 wins will be locked for
Yeah,
playoffs.
so possibly with our upcoming match, we will lock in for playoffs. So
It's gonna be one of us.
yeah, so uh, I think that's really interesting just in general that those 3 and 4 seeds for the Shield division are wide open, even for some of these teams that may have had what they consider a horrendous start. But moving into Shield division, or I'm sorry, Sword division, we have Doesn't Click versus the Sky Pillars. This was a highly anticipated game. The Sky Pillars came into this game undefeated. Doesn't Click with only one loss. And obviously, Doesn't Click has been one of our main threats as far as like the power rankings. We have them ranked very high consistently. We think their team's very good, and the Sky Pillars have been the real surprise of the season. So it was going to be a really interesting game just in general. We saw the Sky Pillars lead the same thing that they actually led against the Russians the week previous when they were going against another Cinderace team. They led the Riolu and they led the Golurk, except this time, instead of going for the coaching right into the Golurk turn 1, they actually went for the Follow Me. And the Doesn't Click, instead of going for the Max Steel Spike that the Russians went for in the last game, they went for a Max Airstream, knocked out the Riolu right away. And really from there, they kind of just kept the pressure on him. We saw a lot. I think that was one of the main things was getting rid of the redirection because they were able to keep the speed control up. The Milotic really, something that we've seen a lot that how threatening it's been able to be. It just kind of sat there very passively. I mean, granted, it did get a nuzzle into it and got parried twice and then missed a hypnosis, but it kind of just coiled up, launched a hypnosis or two, and really didn't do much until eventually I think the game just went to time and the Doesn't Click. It was just playing so methodically. Only lost one Pokemon throughout the entire match, even going all the way to time.
Came down to a 5-2.
5-2 victory, I believe. Yeah, they had a three mon differential. So honestly, one of the more methodical matches that we've seen from Doesn't Click. They seem to hold on, grab their lead, and whenever the Sky Pillars tried to make an adjustment to try and re-grab the momentum, they were able to kind of stifle it and come back a little bit. Honestly, one of the key plays there was just kind of knocking out the Riolu right away and then putting pressure down on the Golurk, getting rid of that, and then rendering the Milotic useless were all key things that they had to do. Also, one of the things that we saw that was really cool was they baited out a Grassy Glide from the Rillaboom. They, I believe they had their Primarina on the field, Doesn't Click, had it on the field. They went for a Protect, and then next turn switched in Serena with Queenly Majesty. They were able to stop the Grassy Glide from going off and knocking out the Primarina. The Primarina was able to get off an attack and get a knockout, and then from then on, the Serena was able to consistently provide Grassy Glide pressure because the Rillaboom had set it up for them previously. One of the things that I will say, and I think Matt kind of told me, we talked about it a little bit, was the Sky Pillars definitely did have a chance because on one of the turns, believe it was after they had already maxed, they had came back down.
Yep.
They were at about 70% after a max Quake, I believe 2 turns before.
I think they might have still been at full.
They were pretty high, honestly. And I think they might have forgot that they had got the Spadef boost. I know that in the VOD, Fiona and Ryan forgot. Because they were pretty...
It seemed that way.
Yeah, because they were pretty certain that the Hyper Voice from the Primarina was going to knock it out. But I'm not entirely certain that it would have.
No,
at +1.
It really wouldn't because the Primarina didn't even have a boosting item. It was Citrus Berry this week. So
So yeah, most likely would have survived and would have been able to hit back. Might have changed the tide of the game a little bit.
I think it really would have because we saw from the Orbital's Frisk that it was weakness policy on the Golurk.
Yeah.
So it would have been able to take the Hyper Voice. It was already at +1 from the Max Knuckle. Would have been able to take the Hyper Voice, get up to +3. It's got no guard.
Not missing Poltergeist.
Yeah, it can just Poltergeist or high horsepower away.
Absolutely.
It absolutely would have taken a knockout, whichever Pokemon it wanted to target
And
that
that
turn.
could have definitely changed
Yeah.
the momentum of the game.
Yeah.
So, kind of something that we saw, the Sky Pillars have been playing so well. I kind of hate to just knock them on something that they just, we all kind of make mistakes like that. It's hard to keep.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep track of the board state 100% of the time.
Yes.
Because there's so many things that are going on, and then you have to consider your own moves that you're going to use. But ultimately, Doesn't Click took the win here. They moved up to 4-1. They're now tied with the Sky Pillars, and because of the differential, that actually moves Doesn't Click ahead of the Sky Pillars, I believe.
Yeah, I just barely.
Yeah.
I think Doesn't Click is at like 11 and the Sky Pillars are at 10, something crazy like that.
So I mean that's why differential matters. That's why
Yeah.
you have to play for every Pokemon. So kudos to Doesn't Click. They're showing once again that they're one of the better teams in the league. And the Sky Pillars are no slouches either. Like we said, they had a perfect opportunity to win. Might have overlooked something, but that could have flipped the game around. Maybe they're looking at 5-0. Maybe they're looking to take the number 1 slot. Honestly, you never know if they move to 5-0. You never know. Team Pussy ended up being the Mimikyus. We really don't have a lot of information on this game, I believe. So
We know that the Cleffa Dynamaxed.
yes, I mean that's it. Kind of along the same vein as the Mimikyus or as the Lava Ridge Raiders, the Mimikyus are a team that hasn't been able to consistently put up any type of wins or any type of resistance even to a lot of these other teams. Team Pussy has, while their team might not be as good as, we felt before, a lot of this losing streak that they've had to go on has had to do with a little bit of bad luck as well. We can't completely blame it on just, the team by itself. They've had some really bad luck, so they were able to take care of business with the Mimikyus, it seems like, so big props to them.
We were sort of harping on their draft a little bit. We don't think it's as good as it was last season, and that could be a factor, but, there were a few times in their games when they had some unfortunate bits of luck. The high jump kick miss in their week 5 game was unfortunate. The Scald Burn on the Dynamax Gyarados against the Mats week 1. It was very early on in the game, but it's possible it could have turned the tide of the game. It really mitigated the damage output from their Dynamax. We don't really know how the game would have played out if the Gyarados was able to get those max moves off without that burn. So it's their record so far is not an indication of how good they are. They're the reigning champions for the reason for a very good reason. It's good to see them, like you said, taking care of business here, taking this win that they at least on paper should be taking.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see them taking their first win here.
Might be a little late in Sword Division. Sword Division, they are at each other's throats. Really good teams, all fighting for those 3 and 4 slots. One very good team that is gonna miss the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I just there's no way. The Talonflames, the Russians, the Sky Pillars, Doesn't Click. One of them, the Seniors, one of them is gonna miss playoffs. And honestly, any of those teams could probably come into Shield Division and make playoffs. So it's just really tough in general. Might be a little bit late for the rally for Team Pussy at this point, unlike how we were talking about for Shield Division, where it's like the Skarmory's got to win. They can do this. We're looking. Maybe they can make a comeback. Don't know if it's in Team Pussy for right now, but they're competitors. Even if they're eliminated from playoffs, they want to play spoiler. They'll win against some teams.
Well, we should also clarify they're not out of playoffs yet.
Not officially.
With this loss, the Mimikyus are out of playoff contention. But Team Pussy can still make it if they depending on how their games go, they may have to rely on some other teams losing in order for them to move up into that number 4 spot.
They definitely are.
But Don't want to go too deep into that right now.
No.
We're actually going to do a segment in a future power rankings video where we break down. Once we have more teams that are locked into playoffs, we're going to be breaking down exactly what it's going to take for certain teams to get in. We're going to be looking at certain scenarios and who has to win or lose what games in order for which teams to get into playoffs. So that'll be interesting to look at. We'll probably do that after week 7, week 8, something like that. So
All of Sword Division seems up for grabs. Honestly, the seeding,
yeah,
like
anything can happen.
I even the Russians who are 3-3 right now, who are probably on the outside looking in the playoff bubble, uh, they still have the possibility to just win outright and end up at the 1 seed. You know,
They can they can
like,
easily bring it back.
like it's crazy things like that. Whereas I think on Shield Division, the top 2 seeds are probably already locked in.
Pretty much.
Pretty much, but I think those 3 and 4 slots. It's going to be interesting when we do that segment on playoff scenarios because those 3 and 4 slots are going to be really interesting pushes in these regular season and with Sword Division, the whole thing is all the seeding games are going to be crazy.
Yeah, pretty much everything is up in the air for Sword Division. That is going to be a crazy playoff race.
Getting sidetracked though, we should probably jump into the Russian assets versus the Toronto Talonflames. The Russians actually ended up, or the Toronto Talonflames, I should say, ended up taking the win here. Really close game. I believe the Talonflames recorded, but we were able to watch it here. The Russians went for a trick room. Kind of just went hard into the trick room mode there. They had a Caparaja. One of the things that I liked that they did was they identified that the Escavalier was going to be a big threat, and they decided to run room service on the Caparaja, so that way they could get into trick room, underspeed the Escavalier, and be able to put pressure down. But then the Talonflames adjusted. They brought Akaberry on the Escavalier, knowing that the Escavalier was going to be one of the primary things they could do. So they ended up actually living a max flare from the Caparaja, and
While they were
Dynamax, yes, of course, and we're still able to put down pressure. I really, really enjoyed this game, and I actually would recommend anybody that hasn't seen that game yet to go watch it, because you see so many levels of prep, so many levels of like them out thinking this, going for this. Like, it was very clear that the Talonflames were expecting a Cinderace mode, and they immediately switched into the Alolan Marowak. They immediately switched into their Trick Room mode once they identified that the Gothitelle was going to set Trick Room up. And then the Russians had Foul Play on their Gothitelle because that was their only attacking move, and was able to two-shot the Marowak and be able to consistently just take that out completely. And the Foul Play was able to put down decent pressure on stuff like Escavalier as well.
Yeah.
It was a really good move choice by the Russians. And then, like we said, the Talonflames just adjusted in turn. They brought the Escavalier, they had the Akaberry, they were able to put down pressure. And then when the Trick Room ended, they came in back with the Dragapult mode, and they tried to put pressure down again. And then we saw other crazy things from the Russians. They actually protected on a Phantom Force from the Dragapult, and everybody's going, why would you protect on Phantom Force? Everybody knows that Phantom Force just breaks through Protect. But with Libero, it turns you into a normal type, so it actually makes you immune to the Phantom Force entirely. So we saw great counterplay out of both teams. It really came down to the wire. I believe the Talonflames ended up winning 1-0 or 2-0.
I think it might have been a 2-0.
Yeah, I think it was a 2-0 win. But ultimately, this was just a really good game. Both teams prepped very, very well. Truly, if people want to see high-level multi-battle play or a draft league play, I really think that this is one of the better games that you could watch here, because both teams prepped so well. You saw so much counterplay from we know you have this, we know you're going to try and do that, and ultimately a team just came out on top, and that's what happens in these leagues. So big props to both teams. Big props to the Talonflames. I believe they're 4-1 now.
Yep.
So they're up there. They're tied with the Sky Pillars. They're tied with Doesn't Click. All in Sword Division, just going for that top spot. So big congrats to them. The Russians are still a good team. So they're them and the Sadistic Seniors, who I believe are both at 3 wins right now. On the outside looking in, but it's very clear that the Seniors and the Russians are playoff caliber teams. Gonna be unfortunate that one of them is gonna miss out, but that's just kind of the name of the game. And you never even know. It might be the Talonflames that miss out. Might be Doesn't Click that
It could
misses
be
out.
anybody.
Could be anybody. We're talking about it right now, saying the Russians or the Sadistic Seniors might be out. They might both be the 1 and 2 seed at the end of this. We just don't know. It's so up in the air. So
Speaking of good techs and good prep, though, I just want to give a big shout out to Sunny Day Jolteon.
that was another one. Another great play. They knew the Tangela was going to be incredible. Was going to be a threat, so they got Sunny Day up and were able to get off a Pyro Ball. Man, just honestly, such good prep out of both teams. Like they really like studied hard on their other opponent's team preview, and they said, what are some things that we can do that we could put on our 6 Pokemon that are going to be able to counter theirs? And the Tangela, great adjustment. They went, you know what, we're going to go physically bulky on this thing. With the things that are really threatening us tend to be on the physical side. So we're just going to go relaxed, max defense, max HP. They got a Steel Spike boost. It really put in a lot of work. So, yeah, honestly, just props to both teams. It's actually one of my favorite games of the year to watch. Was this game, because it just really was. I just loved everything. I love prep. I love when teams put in the effort to like go and look at their opponent's team preview and go, what can we bring that's going to be optimal against this team? I love it because like we've done stuff like Dynamax Grimmsnarl twice.
It's worked.
And it's worked
Twice.
and it's been the right play. Like
Yeah.
it might not have been in VGC or in any other league, but like against these particular teams that we brought it against, it was the right thing to do. So like that's what multi battle is, in my opinion, is about. Is like not going for the thing that is obvious, but just going for the thing that's going to beat your opponent, and that takes high player IQ, high game IQ to do. It takes an ability to be able to dissect, team previews from both your opponent and yourself, come up with sets. Like, honestly, can't say enough about this game. If there were two teams that, if we weren't trying to do a condensed game or a condensed, power rankings, I would love to have the Mats on. They unfortunately played their game too late in the week. We were going to be able to get them on. And I would have loved to have the Talonflames on. I thought that would have been great. I would have loved to pick their brain on this one. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance. Maybe we'll get a chance later on in the year. But yeah, definitely an awesome game. If you haven't checked out that game yet, definitely check it out. I highly recommend it. And then on the Sword Division, the Sadistic Seniors actually were on a bye this week. So we're going to go right into the power rankings here, and just go through 14 through 6 before we go into our top 5. And sitting here at number 14, we have the Mimikyus again. They lost again. I mean, I wish we could kind of talk about this a little bit more, but it just seems like they don't have the composition that they need to properly threaten teams. It's seems that teams are having an easy-ish time to prep for them, bringing what they want and then just kind of doing what they want. I wish I could kind of talk a little bit more on what Team Pussy was able to do to them this week. We kind of don't have a lot. We don't know a lot. We just know Cleffa Dynamax. But for right now, one of the main reasons why we have the Mimikyus this low is honestly just because of their differential. I believe they're sitting at -20 right now. The
That
Raiders,
sounds right.
Yeah, the Raiders are not sitting at -20.
Yeah.
So for that reason, we have them at number 14.
Well, the Raiders have also had their bye already. So the Raiders are 0-5, Mimikyus are 0-6, which is why the Mimikyus are now out of playoff contention. The Raiders are not yet. But they take another loss, then the Raiders are out. And yeah, coming in number 13, once again, we have the Raiders. Not really much to say here. Once again, we're sort of just seeing the same stuff from the Raiders. They're kind of playing the same most weeks, and it's really not paying off because everybody knows exactly what they need to do to beat them, and they're doing it. You just shut down the Trick Room mode, and the rest of their team really just falls apart. We're also seeing we're starting to notice that they're just bringing the same sets every week. They don't appear to be building for their opponents. That's something that Anthony was just talking about. Something that you really need to do to pick up wins in a draft league is to identify what your opponents want to do and build against that. And I think it's clear that they're not doing that. So they're which is really contributing to why they're not doing well. Just a combination of a transparent kind of draft, very easy to know what you have to do to beat it, and they just so far at least they have not been counter teaming anybody at all. So as far as we can tell, so they're sitting down here number 13.
At number 12, kind of a surprise, kind of unfortunate. We have the LA New Wave here. We're learning more and more deficiencies about this team as we go on week to week. I feel that Hector and Allen aren't necessarily bad players. I mean, I know they're not, but they're not necessarily playing badly. It's just it doesn't seem like they have the tools to consistently win or have any type of consistent modes. The Meow Stick in particular has been very underwhelming in my opinion. It was their second overall pick. It just doesn't see. It's come to almost every game, I believe, and I know it has a lot of things that it's able to do, but it just doesn't seem like it's able to do them. We're only seeing a couple of things out of it. I mean, it set up a reflect and it immediately got taken down, and then it set up another reflect, and then just kind of launched expanding forces, but Meowstick
in front of a dark type.
Yeah, Meowstick isn't exactly an offensive powerhouse even when it's in terrain.
Yeah.
So just not a lot that it's doing.
It kind of just feels like we could be wrong about this, but it kind of just feels like they're going into their matches without much of a game plan. It's clear that they're prepping for their opponent. They have different stuff every week, and you can at least see the moveset on Mew is changing to meet the kinds of super effective hits that they might want to get on their opponent's draft. So it's not that they're not building, because they clearly are, but it feels like they don't have a game plan as much as maybe they should, especially in week 5 when they started with the Mew not in the Dynamax slot and ended up taking a whole bunch of damage because they were not able to Dynamax, but clearly it was a Dynamax candidate because it is the Pokemon that ended up maxing that game. So I also noticed toward the beginning of the season, we have a lot of experience with Mew. This didn't really seem like a team where Mew was going to thrive, and I think we're starting to see that now in the way that a lot of their games are playing out.
Yeah. So unfortunately, they only have one win right now. The good news for them is, like we already said, Shield Division is kind of wide open in the 3 and 4 slot. So because both the Mats and the Potatoes have not been very consistent, you never know what's going to happen. They could drop a couple of games each, and next thing you know, you're in the 4 or 3 slot. So they still have a chance to kind of make it through here, but we'll see. We'll see how they end up doing. They're sitting here at the 12th spot for right now, and we'll see if we can move them up a little bit higher.
Coming in at number 11, we have Team Pussy. Team Pussy is one of the teams that picked up their first win this week. They are, instead of 0-4, they are now 1-4. We would have really liked to move them up, but we didn't really feel that we could, given how everybody else did and where everybody else landed. That also has to do with the matchup that they won this week. It's one of those games that on paper you're kind of supposed to win. So they of course haven't won a game before this, and neither had the Mimikyus. But of course we know that Team Pussy is better than that. They're the reigning champions. They've had some bad luck in a few of their games, and so it wasn't too much of a surprise that they took out the Mimikyu. Not a huge accomplishment, let's say. I think if they had taken out another team like maybe Doesn't Click or something like that, they might be shooting. They might have shot up in the rankings, but they took out a team they're supposed to win against. We don't really know much about the match, so not much to say here. So they're sitting here at number 11. If they keep picking up wins, they absolutely will rise in the rankings.
Coming in at number 10, we have the Skarmories. They picked up their first win as well. They're moving up 2 slots from the number 12 slot, where they've kind of been sitting all year, honestly. But we've been kind of saying it these last couple of weeks. They have been putting together good performances. They just have been losing. And this week, they were able to tie it all together. They were able to get everything going, and were able to come away with a good victory against the New Wave. They really, I feel that they got a grapple on this team and how they should play it. They were able to finally get off the Anger Point Crocodile stuff with Unpheasant, like you had mentioned before. So I mean, that's a good thing. If I were them, I would honestly look at the Lapras.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, I think they've only Dynamaxed it once.
Yeah, and I think that maybe if they're and Lapras is a good Pokemon, but they're not Dynamaxing it, and I honestly like it when they Dynamax their other Pokemon. I like it when they Dynamax the Gudra, and I like it when they Dynamax the Crocodile as well. I think those are good modes that they have there next to the Comfey. And obviously the Lapras does, it synergizes well with the other ones. I would never say that it doesn't. We really liked the team comp, especially when you look at the Gudra, the Lapras, and the Comfey core just entirely. Like, I really like that core. But now as we've seen them play through some games, I'm starting to wonder if maybe the Lapras is the oddball out here. And they're in a good position. I mean, they're good players. They showed that last year when they took over a team and were able to pilot it to playoffs. I just wonder if maybe like the draft setting kind of threw them off a little bit, but now they're back in their familiar mode, and we'll see if they can start taking wins, because they were real close to beating the Patriots last week.
Yep.
And they beat the New Wave, and the Shield division is kind of wide open. They're playing teams that are for the most part are a little bit more inconsistent. We'll see how they do in their cross division games. Obviously, that's going to be a big factor as we come into these later weeks, because I believe we're finishing up the divisional games in these next couple of weeks. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, week 7 and week 8 are the last.
So we're going to be finishing these up. So they're, a lot of these teams are going to have to go into the cross division, and if you're in Shield division, you're not looking at Sword division and going, oh, okay, these are going to be easy wins. There's some good teams over there in Sword division,
and they're fighting.
Yes,
they're fighting hard,
and they want wins. So they're not locked into anything yet either. So it's going to be important for everybody in Shield division to try and get wins. Obviously, that's not going to be the case because they're playing each other. But the Skarmories, they're 1-4. I'm kind of in the same boat as you with Team Pussy. Like, this could be the next step for them. They've been playing good, or they're playing well, I should say, and we'll see if this is the first step into kind of making a push towards playoffs. The Skarmories definitely have a chance to do that, so hopefully they can do it.
Coming in at number 9, we have the Potatoes. We, a lot like Team Pussy, we wanted to move these guys up because the two of them did get a win this week. But again, like Team Pussy, it's one of the wins that you're expected to get. It's they beat the Lava Ridge Raiders, who have yet to pick up a win, just like the Mimikyus. So it's not a particularly impressive win. They kind of just took care of business, did what they needed to do, shut down the Trick Room mode, and they did only finish with +1 differential, but the Raiders had to score a double protect in order to get the differential down that low. So another situation where we would like to move them up, but it wasn't a particularly big win. It's one that you're kind of expected to get. So not a huge deal, but it is good, obviously, for the Potatoes record. Keeps them in the running for playoffs in Shield division. again, like Team Pussy, if they keep picking up wins, they will start to rise in the rankings as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely. And honestly, if we're looking at any of the teams that have a chance to make playoffs in Shield Division, I like the Potatoes a lot.
Yeah.
They have good players that are coaching them. They have a good composition here that can just pick up wins. So I think they definitely are going to be able to do that with their main schedule. Coming at number 8, we have the Russian Assets dropping down 3 spots from the 5 spot where they had been sitting for a couple of weeks. Um, you know, they had a rough stretch these last 2 games going against a 4-0 team and then a 3-1 team, or 4-1 team, I should say, after they were finished. So I just it's disappointing that in this stretch where all of Sword Division is fighting for a playoff berth, you drop 2 games. Yes, they're against very very good teams in their division, but when you're an elite team, you can't drop 2 games against them. I think you really have to pull away one. They're definitely going to have a chance to make playoffs. They're only a couple games out, and as we go further into it, we don't know what exactly is going to happen, but then they definitely have the team. I mean, we've talked about how much we like their team. They're very good players too, but you would have really liked to see them split one of these 2 games or at least win both of them. That would have really helped them out a lot, especially considering that they had that early season loss to the seniors, which I think really hurt them. But ultimately they're in the 8th spot here. They're on the outside looking in the playoff window for now. And I do think that they are going to be able to work their way up there and be into the fight for it and maybe even slip into one of those slots for sure. But for now, we have them at the number 8 slot.
Coming in at number 7, we have Ben and Vichy of the Matt Alcinas taking a really big win this week, dropping the New England Patriots down from 5-0 to 5-1. We really wanted to move them up more than just one slot because this is a huge win. Taking a win off of a previously undefeated team is it's always great. It's always impressive. But we felt like we couldn't really move them up, mostly because of where everybody else was placed. The seniors above them obviously had a bye this week. We didn't really want to move them, and we didn't really feel like they deserved to be moved down. But we're really impressed with the Matt Alcina's win this week. It was really really fantastic. But so they're sitting here at number 7, partially because of where everybody else is placed, but also partially because their record is what, 3-2 now. Is
Yes.
that so? And they've been. This is obviously a really big win, but they're also not 100% consistent. It is a little bit strange. If you look at their wins and losses, they took a win off of one of the top teams in the league this week, the New England Patriots. But one of their losses was also to LA New Wave, which is considering one of their wins is against a top team and one of their losses against one of the bottom teams. It shows a little bit of inconsistency. Hopefully, for their sake, they can pick that up moving forward. So. They're sitting at number 7 right now, but if they keep picking up wins, they absolutely do have potential to move into the top 5.
Coming at number 6 is the Sadistic Seniors here. They were on a bye week this week. We didn't really want to move them. I think it's worth mentioning that had the Mats had not had that 5-0 loss to us in the previous week, I think we might have moved them past the Seniors. But I think that's just inconsistency, like you said, right?
Yeah.
Like if you lose to us at a 1-0 or a 2-0 loss or 0-2 loss, I should say, it really it lets us know, okay, well they're here, they're able to compete with the top teams, they're able to do what they need to do, and they had a loss against us and they had a loss against the New Wave, which by the way, Hector and Allen are very good players that they prepped properly with the Drake result, which he was able to tear through their team. So honestly, props to them for being able to do that. I'm not going to fault the Mats for taking that loss there. But with it's interesting that I would have expected going against the Drakeazult when they had a rain team. I would have expected them to take a 5-0 loss from the New Wave, right? But they were able to play their way out and be able to stifle the offense from the New Wave enough to where they were able to have a 2-0 loss instead. I would have totally expected them to do that with us, you know. And you know, even though we had the lead a lot of the time, that they were able to just kind of keep us held off. And even though maybe they didn't knock out Mons, maybe they stopped us from knocking out Mons. Maybe we go to time and we win 5-3, you know, or 5-2 or something like that. But I think that's one of the main reasons why we kept the seniors at number 6, was because while they do have the same record as the Mats, the seniors have some pretty impressive wins just in general. They've been pretty consistent. I would say they've beat teams that they should be beating, and you know, they've lost teams that it's just they're rough losses. You know, so I mean, I don't fault the seniors at all. They kind of had a rough couple of weeks where they saw a lot of their main losses, but they're a team that is definitely going to be in the playoff hunt here, especially in Sword Division. And it's only a matter of time before they start getting these top 5 slots. So for right now, we have the seniors at number 6 above the Mats, even though they have the same record. The seniors just showing a little bit more consistency than the Mats are. And we honestly really like the players just as much on both teams. So, yeah, good to them. So coming in for our first top 5 slot,
Toronto Talonflames. I think in terms of their play for the Talonflames, it's just been incredibly solid. Mm-hmm. I think that's that describes how they've been playing better than anything. Just very very solid. They've only taken 1 loss. They are 4-1 now, I believe. Pretty sure they've already had their bye week. So, they took a big win off of one of those top 5 teams in the Sword Division this past week, which is those matches are against those 4 matches for all 5 of those teams. The 4 matches against those other teams are probably your biggest matches, because you obviously want to take the win, but if you're doing it against one of those guys instead of just doing it against Team Pussy, you're doing it against the Mimikyus or in a cross division game, you're also causing one of those other main competitors to take a loss. Those are really important games to win, and they've been able to pull it out for a couple of those so far. So really solid play. Again, like we mentioned earlier, these guys have been using the transaction periods better than anybody else. Mm-hmm. We were one of our main criticisms of their team initially was that they didn't have any redirection. They went out and got Tangela as soon as they possibly could, right after week 2, and it's been an incredible addition to their team. They used it very very effectively this past week against the Russians, and then these last 2 trades. We talked about how much we like them already, so I won't go into too much detail here, but great trades for the Marowak and the Starmie. Marowak, it's obvious what it does. It's very good at just blowing through opposing teams with its massive amount of offense with that thick club, doubling your attack. And the Starmie, maybe a bit of an underrated Pokemon. I think it's got some decent offense. It has a great speed stat. It's got a lot of coverage, a lot of good tech moves it can do if you want to use it as like a fast support Pokemon. And also with these picks, they've really rounded out their Fire, Water, Grass core. Yeah. So that's really nice to see. Really solid play from the Talonflames. Would not be surprising at all to see them in playoffs. I definitely expect them to be one of those top 4 teams in Sword Division. But of course, everything is still like we keep saying, everything's still up in the air even this late into the season. But they obviously have a very good shot. They're X-1 right now. They have a great team composition. It's just been getting better, and they've been showing through with their play why they're in it and why they have the record that they have, and they've just been super solid.
The only thing that they have that isn't a threat is the Merrill. Everything else
That's
they've
true.
brought,
Yeah.
and they've done very well with it.
Yeah.
You know,
I very
except for the Starmie, but the Starmie has just barely got there. It's unproven, but yeah,
Yeah, they haven't actually it hasn't gotten a chance to hit
yeah,
the field yet. I don't know if they had it in team preview this past week, but if they
no,
did, they didn't.
they
Pretty
didn't
sure they
bring it.
didn't bring it. So I'm we've seen the Marowak, we've seen what it can do. I mean, even outside of their team, we all know what Marowak does. But the Starmie, I want to see that thing come out. I want to see it hit the field.
Yeah, they're the player. They're good players. They'll bring it out. They'll get a couple of kills with it. Put themselves in a winning position. All right, coming in at number 4, we have the New England Patriots actually falling down a couple of spots from their 2 spot.
Yep.
Honestly, we like the Patriots a lot. We think their team is very good. I think this has less to do with the Patriots and more to do with the teams that are going to be coming in at number 3 and number 2. We think that while the Patriots have been getting wins and while they were undefeated for a long time, uh, they it's the best way to put this. They haven't been the most overwhelmingly won games. They've come down to time, like we've said a bunch of times. Uh, they they seem to just kind of chug along a little bit and get the wins. And you know what? At the end of the day, what matters are wins. If you're coming away with those, that's fine. But this is, I think, is going to be the second time that the Matt Alcinas beat them due to time. And that's what happens when you have players where they understand what your win con is. They understand what you're going to try and do. And both Ben and Vichy are very good players that understand that a lot. They played the Patriots in playoffs. I don't think people, if you're new to this league, let me just kind of go ahead and give you an overview. The Patriots have been a very dominant team in NBL whenever they've been around. They wore the LA, no, not the LA Lucarios. That was Ben and Vichy. I forgot who Cleffy. I know Cleffy was paired with Kunal, but they were a playoff team back then. They did very well in their first year, and then their second year, they went undefeated up until the last week. They ended up 8-1, went in as the 1 seed, and the Matt Alcinas came in and actually beat them after barely coming into playoffs. They had a really rough year. Ben and Vichy are good players. They ended up beating us, who we also went set 8-1, and then went into the finals and put up a good fight against Team Pussy. They really didn't have a good matchup against them in the first place. But the point of what I'm saying is that the Patriots, when they're going against some of these teams that know how they're playing, this is kind of what happens. They end up losing to time. That's why it's not a super consistent mode when you get into these later weeks in the playoffs. But the point is that they still have a very, very threatening mode. We're playing against them this week, so we're looking at them and we already know the synergy that they have with that Firewater Grass Core plus Clefairy is extremely dangerous because of the versatility that they have and the way that they're able to support it with the Clefable. And then you have the tried and true Runerigus and Caparaja mode that they've been known to just sweep through teams with that aren't prepared for it. So those are 2 modes that you absolutely have to prepare for. And this Beware has really came in and fit in very nicely on the team, I feel. It's super bulky. They've used it a few times already. It's picked up KOs, and it's genuinely been a threat when it's been on the field. They ran a fast set this week, or a fast-ish set against the Mats, and it did pretty well, honestly. It just they ended up taking the loss, but I think the Beware fits in nice. The Morgrim and the Manetric seem to be a little bit more on the weird side there, but honestly, I just like their team in general. They're sitting here at the 4 slot. They on any given week they can beat any team. Period.
They definitely have the tools for
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
on any
Yeah.
given week. The issue is that if you catch them on an off week, you have a good chance of picking up the win. You saw all the Mats had to do was just make sure that their offense didn't come out in the first 3 turns, and they were able to kind of turn that around on them. So while they are an X-1 team, we do feel that they're at the bottom of the X-1 team. So right now we have them at the 4 slot below the other 2.
Still above the Talonflames though.
Oh yes, we do have them above the Talonflames. You're right. And like I said, we like them a lot. We think they're very good, and they're definitely in Shield Division they're going to be in the playoffs. So.
Yeah.
All right. And coming in,
Number 3, the Sky Pillars. Taking they did end up taking their first loss, but we are keeping them the same. I believe they were number 3 for our week 5
no, they were number
rankings.
2.
Oh, were they number 2? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so in that case, they're moving down one, but they they did take a loss to Doesn't Click, which not a huge deal. You definitely want, obviously, with the way that the playoff race is going in Sword Division, you definitely want to pick up all the wins that you can.
Yeah.
But they've picked up 4 good wins before that. They are another one of our X and 1 teams. They we really like the way that they're playing and prepping so far, and there's no shame in losing to Doesn't Click. We did identify maybe 1 or 2 ways that they could have turned that match around, played it out a little bit differently. Maybe they still would have lost. It's hard to tell because you never know exactly how the rest of the match is going to play out if one team makes one particular play differently. But so they did end up losing. No shame in that. But with the especially with the prep that we've seen from these guys, it's just been it's been outstanding. I think they're really they are the dark horse of this season. Nobody they're new to the multi battle conference this season. Nobody really knew how they were going to do. When we've mentioned this a couple of times during our initial interview with them, when we were trying to put together our week 0 power rankings, we asked them what their expectations for the league were, and they kind of just said, "Oh, we're here to have fun. Maybe pick up a couple wins here and there, but mostly for fun." And I think now that they've gotten a taste for victory, they're here for more than fun. They're easily a playoff team. It's possible for any of the top 5 teams in their division to drop down to that number 5 spot. It could be them. It could be somebody else. But they are here to win games, and they've proven that they can win games even against tough teams.
Yeah.
We really like what we're seeing from them so far. Their team composition is fantastic. The Golurk, I think, has been surprising everybody. It's just been fantastic. I look forward to seeing their games every week. We love these guys. We love their team.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to seeing what else they can do, and we really want to see them in playoffs as well. So, number 3 for the Sky Pillars.
Number 3 is very respectable, and they were number 2 last week. They only dropped down 1. And number 2 is the team that beat them that Doesn't Click. Not a lot to say about them. They're powerhouses. Fiona and Ryan, amazing players. They've won this league back-to-back years. They put together an amazing team. They've showed that they can win games with this amazing team. Their Firewater Grass Court is our favorite Firewater Grass Court. The Serena just countering Rillaboom. Oh my God, it's so good.
Using its own terrain against it.
Using its own terrain against it. The Primarina, so good. The Cinderace, such an offensive powerhouse that they've been able to use. Next to the Obstagoon with Defiant, that kind of wards off the Intimidate a little bit. They did really good stuff with the Obstagoon too. I really like this team.
Raichu is a really strong piece of this team too.
Yeah.
It contributes so much to their synergy.
It's the cement to their brick wall, the mortar that they need to kind of hold it all together. And they bring it all the time. It does great things. The Nuzzle this week, getting the full paras, keeping the speed control out there, was great. Yeah, not a lot to say about Doesn't Click except for we love them. They took a loss to the Russians. I feel that might have only ignited a fire in their belly. Now they're here with a vengeance a little bit.
Yeah, they don't want that to happen again.
No, they don't. They want to make playoffs. They want to make a playoff push. They're coming back with the force. They're playing like it. So we have Doesn't Click at number 2. Do you have anything else to say about them?
Yeah, they missed playoffs last season. after coming back as the returning champs, two-time returning champs. They won both season 1 and season 2. And they barely missed playoffs in season 3 for some kind of unfortunate reasons. They are they're obvious they draft well enough and prep well enough and play well enough that they should be consistently a playoff team every year.
Yeah.
And we've said it before, say it again. We don't think that they're going to let that happen again this season. I think it's very likely that they make playoffs. With this team, and with the way that they've shown that they can play, they are a strong candidate to win the whole thing again.
Yeah.
So, not surprising to see them up here at number 2 at all.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah. And finally coming in at number 1, always feel weird putting us at number 1, but I mean, we are the only undefeated team left. Everyone in this league has taken a loss except for us, and I think there's very good reason for that, especially given the way that we played this last match. We had a bye in week 6, but in week 5, we took a 5-0 victory against a very, very powerful team. And I think we definitely have one of the best drafts. It is we're the only draft that does not have an S tier. We went for balance and versatility over everything else. We've been able to control matches very consistently. We're able to come in and create the situation that dictates how we and our opponents are going to play. We create an environment that not only benefits us but also counters some of the stuff that our opponent is trying to do. Maybe do some stuff that's a little bit unexpected. That's one marker of a good draft player, I think, is to know when to use standard stuff and when to pull out some creativity. I think we've done that well so far. So I think that the name of the game here is control and diversity in our draft. We have so many options, so many different things that we can do. It's clearly a very hard draft to prep for. And I think we very consistently identified what modes are going to are most likely to work, and we've been successful every time so far. So, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think one thing that I would kind of say is I've talked to a lot of our opponents after we've played against them, and one of the common themes that I see from our opponents is they always expect something else. And I think that that's one of the things that kind of helps us out a lot is they always go, we weren't expecting that, we were expecting this. We weren't expecting that, we were expecting this. And I think that the fact that we have so many different things, we've put so many different things on tape on top of that, like you have to watch out for Nasty Plot Slow King now because we've been we've Dynamax or Gigantamax Grimmsnarl twice. So now you have to watch out for this weird Grimmsnarl set that we may have or may not have. So I think that that's been one of the things is that we've been able to keep teams on their toes. And once we have that, we're able to at least maintain it.
We've used both support and offensive Blastoise. We've used both support and offensive Volcarona.
Yeah.
So many of our Pokemon can just do. They have a lot of different modes that they can use, and that's what motivated a lot of our draft is that diversity and versatility.
This week we definitely have our toughest match. We go against the Patriots. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but yeah, I mean, for right now, we're at the number 1 slot, mostly because we just haven't dropped a game yet, and our differential is really high.
Especially after that last game, we've taken 2 5-0 victories so far.
Yeah, so that's only going to boost up our differential. So, all right. With that said, we have the total power rankings. Did you want me to fly through these, or you want to go ahead and take them real quick?
Yeah, I got this one. So down at the bottom we have the Melee Mimikyus, the first team that is out of playoff contention. They are 0-6 right now. Right above them, the Lava Ridge Raiders. Also, one of the two teams to have yet to pick up a win. Sitting down here at 13. Not doing so well either. They have a little bit of a better team composition, we feel, than the Mimikyus, but they don't seem to be changing up their sets at all. They kind of get beat the same way every week, so not doing so well there for those two teams. Dropping down to number 12, we have LA New Wave. They are 1-4 right now, unfortunately. Not doing so well. It seems like they might be coming into some of these matches with less of a game plan than maybe they should have. We've seen that they can do some good stuff. Hector and Allen are obviously very, very good players. They can. I can definitely see them improving as we move forward. But for right now, they haven't been doing so well. Sitting here at number 12. Number 11, Team Pussy, also at a 1-4 record. They did not move up from last time because they beat the Melee Mimikyus. Not a particularly impressive win, one they're sort of expected to get. It is still kind of weird to see the reigning champions ranking this low, but we've gone through the various reasons why they seem to have taken so many losses. So they're sitting down here at number 11. Number 10, the SoCal Skarmories seem to be picking up a little bit. They took their first win this week. Very commanding win with that Dynamax +6 Crocodile from the Anger Point. They seem to be doing what their team really wants to be doing now, and I look forward to seeing more of these different modes that they have at their disposal. I think they could easily be on an upward trajectory right now. I'm looking forward to seeing their games in the future. Number 9, the Potatoes, also taking a win. It's one of those games that they're on paper sort of supposed to win. They went in, did what they needed to do against the Raiders. Not a particularly impressive win. It's kind of expected. So they're staying here at number 9. They're at a 3-3 record right now. They're another team that if they continue to pick up wins, they will absolutely be moving up. Number 8, the Russian Assets, down to 3-3 record right now. They took another loss from the Toronto Talonflames this week. Really, really great game on both sides. But they are down at that number 5 slot, so they're going to have to fight to get back into that top 4 in Sword Division. Number 7, the Mad Alcina's taken a big win off of the New England Patriots this week. Only moved them up 1 because we're seeing a little bit less consistency from them than a lot of other teams. But they're obviously they're very good players. They have a terrifying draft. They took a big win this week off of one of the only undefeated teams. They're doing great. If they keep up with these wins, they're definitely going to make playoffs in Sword Division, or excuse me, Shield Division. Number 6, the Sadistic Seniors. They were on a bye this week. They're definitely doing great. They're sitting at a positive record right now. They could easily make playoffs in Sword Division, even though it's going to be a tough fight for all of those teams in there. We kept them where they were after their bye this week. Moving into the top 5, we have the Toronto Talonflames coming up from rank 7 last time, taking a big win off of one of their main Sword Division opponents in the Russian Assets. Once again, really great game on both sides. We really liked how both teams played. Really important win for them to get. Moves them into the top 5. They are our first X-1 team here. Number 4, the New England Patriots, taking their first loss this week. They are also X-1, 5-1 because they have not had their bye week yet. They are almost locked for playoffs in Shield Division. One more win will get them there. They're still in the top 5 despite losing this week. Really great team. They've shown that they can pick up a lot of wins against a lot of tough opponents. Coming in at number 3, we have the Sky Pillars, again an X-1 team. Very, very great team. We like Sky Pillars a lot. They've been showing great prep. They've beaten some really powerful teams. Would not be surprised to see them in playoffs in Sword Division either. They're a very tough team to beat, great powerhouse. They did take a loss this week to Doesn't Click, but they did not move down. Actually, they were actually number 3 last week. They didn't move down because, of course, it's to be expected to take a loss to Doesn't Click. They're a phenomenal team. Doesn't Click. The win they took against the Sky Pillars this week was very important. They are one of those teams that is really fighting hard for one of those playoff slots in SOAR Division. Moving up to rank number 2, they are our final X&1 team. They are phenomenal players. They have one of the best drafts in the league by far. They definitely deserve that number 2 slot. And then coming in at number 1, us, the Amoonguss Burnouts, the only team left that has yet to drop a game.
All right, so let's go on. We wrapped up week 6. It's all done. Moving into week 7. I'll go ahead and take Shield Division for our pick'ems this week. We have the Mount Alcinas versus the SoCal Skarmories. We like the Skarmories here.
We are aware this is a weird pick, but given the matchup, just between the two drafts, we think the Skarmories. We think if they pick the right modes, the Mats are going to have a tough time dealing with what they've got in store for them. So
yeah, and honestly, the Skarmories have been playing so well lately. Their record doesn't reflect that, but they've been building consistent things this whole time. I feel that they've identified a little bit on some of the things that they've been doing wrong in their losses. I know that Steve and Gooch both probably self-reflected a little bit and try to figure it out because they're good players. They're going to understand this. And it mostly has to do with the matchup in the team with the teams. We do think that Ben and Vichy are also very good players as well, but they've showed some inconsistencies. We kind of feel this is a little bit of a trap game, a little. The Skarmories are going to come in. They're feeling good. The Mats, after beating the Patrats, are probably feeling a little too comfortable, and
could be.
The Skarmories might. I think they come in and maybe steal a win. I really do. So. We have the Skarmories taking the win against the Matt Alcinas and picking up their second win of the season. With us, the Amoonguss Burnouts versus the New England Patriots, big surprise, we chose ourselves. Not going to talk about it too much because we don't want to reveal a lot, but we're probably going to pick ourselves every single week just because why even bother pretending that we're not going to be biased about it? We're going to win every game.
It's also because we've never been wrong.
I mean, everybody hates that you said that, but it's also true. After that, we have the Lava Ridge Raiders versus the LA New Wave. We think the LA New Wave, after losing 2 big games in a row, they're going to take care of business against the Raiders here. Also might be a potential trap game here a little bit because the Raiders maybe wanting to take a win. But I feel that the New Wave are gonna really put their foot down here and just come away with this victory and hope that they can scrounge something out of these last 3 games here. And the Potatoes are going to be on a bye this week, so I guess they win this week, huh?
If you want to put it that way, sure. Sword Division, we've got Team Pussy and Doesn't Click. This is the match of the two returning champion teams. Are we sure we picked Team Pussy here? Or was that an error?
That up.
Yeah, okay. So disregard the Team Pussy being highlighted there.
Even though we're recording this after their match.
Yeah, we don't want to. Okay, I didn't want to put that in the video, but
they
fine.
They kind of already know we're doing this. At the end
I know. Whatever. We were planning on picking Doesn't Click here for somewhat obvious reasons. They've been doing much better than Team Pussy. They're obviously all 4 players in this match are phenomenal. Both of these teams have won the league before, but considering how Team Pussy is doing and considering how good Doesn't Click is and how good their draft is, I think Doesn't Click obviously has a much better draft than Team Pussy. Doesn't Click is actually our pick for this week.
You chose Doesn't Click.
Yes. So disregard Team Pussy being highlighted there. We'll just leave it at that. Sadistic Seniors versus the Melee Mimikyu. We definitely this one's pretty clear. It's a lot like LA New Wave versus the Lava Ridge Raiders. It's to be expected that basically every team in Sword Division is going to take out the Melee Mimikyu. We may be wrong. Hopefully they come away with an well, hopefully for them anyway, they come away with an upset win. That's going to really throw a wrench in the seniors' plan if they're able to do that. This is a win that they're really supposed to pick up, and that's going to be it's going to be a pretty devastating loss if they're not able to do that. But we think we're not really worried about the seniors. We think they can pull this one out. The Toronto Talonflames versus the Sky Pillars. This one was a very difficult decision. They are both 4-1. They've both shown. I think. I want to say, at least off the top of my head, I want to say the Talonflames have shown better play and the Sky Pillars have shown better prep.
I would agree with that statement.
And it's hard to say which one of those is going to come out on top. For me, I'll speak for myself here. Picking the Talonflames, it feels like it comes down to just more of a gut decision.
Yeah.
It really could go either way. I think maybe let's go back to the list of teams here. Let's see. Sky Pillars, Toronto Talonflames. I think just looking at this a little bit more instinctually, maybe the matchup for the Talonflames is a little bit better. I think the Dragapult, I think the Sky Pillars are going to struggle against the Dragapult a little bit. They could set up Trick Room. They do have two ghost types, and the Dragapult is going to be faster than both of them, obviously, unless one of them decides to run a Choice Scarf. Although I don't think Scarf Golurk is capable of outspeeding Dragapult. But and of course they do have both teams have double ghost types. Mm-hmm. But if they decide to set up Trick Room, then the Marowak is going to be slower than both of the Sky Pillars ghost types. So. And then the Escavalier is obviously a phenomenal Trick Room Pokemon. I think, now that I'm looking at it, I'm remembering a little bit why we selected the Talonflames. On paper, comparing one draft to the other, looks like the Talonflames have the advantage. But again, these are both two teams that have been doing very, very well. Like I said, the Sky Pillars, I'm considering them the dark horse of this season. This match really could go either way. I would not be surprised to find that we're wrong here, but we're gonna put our money on the Talonflames. I wouldn't bet too much on it if I were putting money on it, but we got to pick one, so we're going with the Talonflames.
Sword Division has some good games these last few weeks. Talonflames versus the Russians, Sky Pillars versus the Russians, the Talonflames versus the Sky Pillars, Doesn't Click versus the Sky Pillars. They've had some really good games this week. This is going to be another one that I think is going to be a must-watch. I think putting it that way, good prep versus good play is the best way. Because one of the things that we've seen from the Talonflames, not to give away their whole strategy or anything, but they tend to kind of go through the same flow chart of lead Dragapult, do damage to Dragapult. Mid-game, you use the Scarf Toxtricity and the Sylveon to just lay down pressure. And then in the late game, you have this Scavalier on the back that they just can't stop in Trick Room. And it's been winning, and it's been doing very well. Now, obviously, they have a new dynamic with the Marowak and the Tangela and the Starmie now. So who knows what they're going to do to add that into that dynamic a little bit. The Talonflames, they've been doing fantastic. The Sky Pillars, their prep has been amazing. I don't know who to credit for that, for it or Shannon. I feel Shannon kind of makes it seem like she's not doing a lot there, but she's also let us into a little bit of her thought process, and we've kind of found out some of these game-changing strategies that we've seen have actually come from her. So.
I believe she did say the safety goggles on Golurk was her idea.
Yeah, I mean, so like a lot of these things that's what we're saying is, they're just two good players that are complementing each other right now, and they have a good enough team to where, they have only dropped one game, and they dropped one game against one of the best teams in the league and doesn't click. So yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a close game for sure. I like the Talon Flames too, but honestly,
Yeah.
it can go either way. It's gonna
Really
be a battle
can.
of heavyweights,
Yeah.
and then I guess the Russians are on a bye this week too. Huh?
Yeah. I wonder who's going to come out on top there.
Probably the Russians
Yeah. Well, I will see.
or America, because America always comes out on top, except when we're losing.
We'll find out. We'll find out next. Tune in next week on the next episode of Dragon Ball Z. You'll find out.
Yeah, but that wraps up. Actually, that does wrap up our week 7. Did you want to hit on anything else? Or are we pretty much done here?
I think we're good.
All right, guys. So this is obviously a lot longer of an episode here, but we're caught up. We're gonna get into week 7 power rankings next week. I believe everybody looks like they're gonna be scheduled on time. Who knows?
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll try and get this out, the next one out as soon as possible, guys. But thanks for waiting around for this one, and we'll get this out to you as soon as possible. See